Hi guys, welcome back. Do you know who is the CEO of WhatsApp? A. William Cathcart. B. Jack Dorsey. C. Tim Cook. If you know the answer, then let me know down in the comments below until I complete the video. So guys, in today's video, we'll be showing you 10 most dangerous children condemned. Without further ado, let's go! Number 10. Aaron Campbell. The 16-year-old who abducted, raped, and murdered 6-year-old Alicia McPhail can be identified as Aaron Campbell after a judge in Glasgow allowed his name to be reported. Tony Graham, QC, the lawyer representing several news organizations, told Lord Matthews at the High Court in Glasgow that it would be naive to think that the teenager's identity is not already known amongst members of the Butte community and at the Polmont Young Offenders Institute. He said the name of the boy, convicted on Thursday of the 6-year-old's rape and murder, has been on Facebook, Twitter, and available via a Google search since last July. A substantial majority of Scotland's printed press and broadcast media are represented in the application, the lawyer said. He asked the judge to allow the publication of the boy's name, address, school, and images of him. Number 9. Damilola Taylor's Danny and Ricky Preddy. Brothers Danny and Ricky Preddy were members of a gang known as the Young Peckham Boys, and by age 12 and 13 were terrorizing the streets of South London. Danny was rarely out of supervision or detention, and at the time of Damilola's killing, should have been subject to a 24-hour curfew in a social services home. 4 weeks after the killing, Danny was placed under a supervision order for an assault with intent to rob and 2 cases of racially aggravated assault. He breached the order. Ricky, 13 at the time of the killing, also had a history of violence and theft. He was also supposed to have been under supervision when the schoolboy was killed. Number 8. Eric Smith. While riding his bike through a local park in Steuben County, New York, 13-year-old Eric Smith bumped into 4-year-old Derek Robbie, who was walking alone. Smith lured the small boy into a wooded area, strangled him, dropped 2 large rocks on his head, and then sodomized the body with a tree limb. He has been refused parole 8 times since 2001 and will next be up in 2018. In 2005, Smith claimed that his family life was abusive and the effect upon him was as devastating as the bullying. However, his inability to express emotion while saying such words leads court psychologists to believe that Eric Smith could ever be fully rehabilitated and released into society. Number 7. Lionel Tate. Lionel Tate is the youngest American citizen ever to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Tate was left alone with 6-year-old Tiffany Unick, who was being babysat by his mother, Kathleen Gossett Tate. After 45 minutes of playing with the little girl, Tate told his mom that she wasn't breathing because he's had her in the headlock and slammed her head on the table. In fact, her injuries ranged from a lacerated liver to a fractured skull, broken rib, and swollen brain. The prosecution said her injuries were consistent with those that she would have sustained falling 3 stories to the ground. Tate had stomped on the little girl until she succumbed to her injuries. He was released on 1 year's house arrest and 10 years probation. He has committed further crimes since and is currently serving 10 years in prison. He is due for release in 2018. Number 6. Joshua Phillips. Joshua Phillips was allegedly playing with a baseball bat at home in Jacksonville, Florida, when he struck 8-year-old Maddie Clifton in the eye, causing it to bleed. Phillips claimed he panicked, fearing his father's reaction, so he strangled her with a phone cord and stabbed her 11 times. He then hid her body in the pedestal of his waterbed, where his mother discovered it a week later. While the autopsy did not reveal any sexual assault, Maddie's body was found nude from the waist down. The murder appears to have been motivated by Phillips' fear of his abusive father, who would have been very angry if he'd found Maddie hurt in their house. Phillip, who had no history of violence, was charged as an adult with murder. If you're enjoying the video, then make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos just like this. Number 5. Craig Price. Craig Price had become a serial killer before the age of 16, having killed 4 people in his Rhode Island neighborhood on the east coast of the U.S. Aged 13, in 1987, Price broke into the house 2 doors down from his own and stabbed 27-year-old Rebecca Spencer 58 times, killing her. He did not become a suspect in that case until confessing to the murder 2 years later, after he went on to kill 3 other neighbors while he was high on marijuana and LSD. The victims, 39-year-old Joan Heaton and her daughter Jennifer, 10, and Melissa, 8, were stabbed over 30 times each. Their wounds were so deep that the handles broke off the knives, leaving the blades embedded in the victims. Instead, he was jailed for 25 years, but his violent behavior behind bars makes it unlikely he will ever be released. Number 4. Elisa Bustamante. Elisa Bustamante lured her 9-year-old neighbor, Elizabeth Alton, into the woods, where she strangled her, then slit her neck and wrists, before burying her in a shallow grave. Bustamante, of Midwestern state Missouri, was a troubled teenager who had a history of depression, self-harm, and suicide attempts. Bustamante wrote in her diary. She later added, "It was amazing. As soon as you get over the 'oh my god, I can't do this' feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. K, I gotta go to church now, LOL." Elizabeth's mother, Patty Priest, called Belmonte an evil monster and said that she hated her on the first day of the teenager's sentence hearing. Elisa was charged with first-degree murder and tried as an adult, getting a life sentence with the possibility of parole. Number 3. Jesse Pomeroy. The son of a Civil War veteran, Jesse Pomeroy was born in Boston in 1859. By the age of 11, he had begun luring younger boys to remote areas and beaten them with extreme brutality, using fists, a belt, and a knife. In 1872, he was finally arrested for the ongoing attacks and sentenced to reform school. The Boston Globe covered the story, and the last line of the article said, "It is generally concluded that the boy is mentally deficient." In 1874, Pomeroy was living back with his family and attacked 10-year-old Mary Curran, then later 4-year-old Horace Mullen. He killed both youngsters, and their bodies were later found hidden in the basement of the house. However, 2 years later, in 1876, his sentence was commuted to life in solitary. Number 2. Morgan Leppert. Leppert and her 22-year-old boyfriend at the time, Toby Lee Lowry, were convicted of the brutal murder of James Stewart, 62, in his own Florida home. Stewart was found lying on the floor of his Florida home after being stabbed multiple times with metal rods and a knife and suffocated with a plastic bag over his head. In the police tapes, she told detectives, "My boyfriend told me to stab him. I poked him. It didn't even go through, for God's sake." She places most of the blame on her ex-boyfriend, who testified against her in order to avoid the death penalty. The pair claimed that they killed Stewart to steal his car. Number 1. Willie Bosket. Willie Bosket was born in Harlem, New York, to a father who killed 2 people shortly after his son was conceived, and thereafter spent his life in prison. Bosket Jr. was in and out of trouble growing up, a violent child, and wore this as a badge of honor, telling juvenile authorities that he would be a killer just like his father. He committed his first murder when he was 15 years old, shooting and killing 2 men during separate robbery attempts. He also killed a transport worker before the police got to him. The outcry against his sentence led to the Juvenile Offender Act of 1978, which ruled that children as young as 13 could be tried in New York's adult courts for crimes as serious as murder and receive the same penalties as adults. Upon release, aged 20, Bosket continued his life of crime, leaving and re-entering jail until receiving a life sentence for assault and arson while in prison in 1989. So guys, let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts about this? And the answer to the question that I asked at the beginning of the video is Will Cathcart. For more interesting content, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. Have a nice day, and I will see you in the next video.